Good evening. My name is Daniel Alarcon. This is a presentation for case study 2, Counterterrorism Technologies, Lockheed Martin. So the objective of this presentation is to explore two counterterrorism technologies and how they enhance security, supply chain resilience, and how they can actually create a competitive advantage in your supply chain. And the company I chose to apply this technology to is Lockheed Martin. So there's actually three different parts to this presentation. The first one will be about how we can actually apply this technology to Lockheed's supply chain. Um, and the two technologies I've chosen are the digital twin and blockchain. And we'll also provide a explanation of how this tech can enhance Lockheed Martin's supply chain. So Lockheed Martin is a defense company. Their number one customer is the U.S. government. They do sell to a couple other governments, but most of their business is the U.S. Something really interesting I found is, on one of their divisions, I found some instructions that they provide to suppliers on how to ship things. So in that document, Lockheed Martin actually provides a handful of suppliers only that they're able to use for third-party carriers. Um, One of them was DHL for expediting small packages. They have Siva Logistics, Expeditors International, and a couple of other companies. So that includes trucks, that includes ships, and that includes air freight. They have a system in place where they do like supplier briefings and supplier validations. These are kind of like questionnaire type processes to vet a supplier and make sure that the supplier has all the cybersecurity protocols in place to do business with Lockheed. Obviously, being a defense company, it's important to maintain a sense of security when dealing with so many products. They have over 350 facilities, over 121,000 employees. This means that their supply chain is massive in over 52 countries. So, as you get deeper into their supply chain, into different levels, it becomes more difficult to track things like parts, to track information, and just to, be able to trust that information. So the two technologies I chose were the digital twin and blockchain. The digital twin, that's basically kind of like a virtual representation of your current systems. So kind of like a carbon copy, but it's like a test environment. So you can mess with it. You can add scenarios like, well, what if I lost a shipment? Or what if a pandemic hits and we're not going to receive materials for 3 weeks? So what does that do to my production? What does that do to my customers? It is a costly tool that requires time and money, um, but it can actually be created in house if that is one way you decide to go. The other thing is blockchain. So blockchain, originally I was familiar with blockchain from things like Bitcoin, and just to touch a little bit on that, it's kind of like if it's cryptocurrency, you want it to be legit and safe. So it's really difficult to mess with it. You can't like crack the code on it to alter it. Essentially, here it's used to basically gather information together and send it across its supply chain. So you can't actually, remove something from a bill of lading or add something or change the cost. All of that is very difficult to do unless you have permission to do it. And even when you do have permission to do it, all of that is visible to anybody who should be able to view that. So here's a few ways that the digital twin and blockchain can actually help Lockheed Martin enhance their supply chain. Um, So aside from the obvious with the digital twin, something I wanted to touch on was the visualization aspect of it. Being a digital tool, it can actually visualize your supply chain for you. So basically, you think of it as creating a map for you so that you can actually see, oh, I have all these suppliers and this is what they provide, and it comes into my factories and I build all this. So that is something really cool. Aside from like the scenarios and the potential to add planning and prepare for different scenarios, that is something that I thought was really cool that it allows you to do. For blockchain, obviously what I talked about earlier, but in addition to that, the efficiency portion was something that I thought was pretty cool. With that information coming through to you as things get received, it can trigger things for you, like automatic payments, for example, where, if you create a goods receipt, boom, that releases payment. So that can help you with, you know, paperwork and other sorts of operational costs. Blockchain actually also kind of requires you to collaborate with customers and suppliers. Like there must be that collaboration with them because they're all going to be using this technology, so they all need to work together to understand how to use it. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how these two technologies actually help a company prevent these sort of cyber attacks and basically mitigate your risk and ensure that your supply chain is resilient and can withstand all these sort of shocks. So again, with the digital twin, the biggest difference between a digital twin and, any other sort of scenario planning is that with the digital twin, you can actually see results of what would happen. So it lets you go one step past theory of, you can plan all you want for a disruption. You won't actually know if that works, but this is a little bit farther than that, where it could actually tell you, oh, it would work or your plan would not work. Blockchain, a lot of things you can do with that. The biggest thing again is, minimizing fraud and making sure things don't get changed in the data. Also, it can all be tracked really easily by like a customer or the government. It's also used for physical security. Like you can etch a unique barcode on a material so that gets scanned as it goes. So the material can't be replaced by someone who wants to do, who wants to hurt the company. The other thing is it helps with open innovation because this way you can transmit data and information to like your suppliers or your customers without it being leaked. So that enables that open innovation and collaboration with each other. So the digital twin, it actually was created for the purpose of resiliency, in our case, supply chain resiliency. So one thing is just scenario testing, right? Another thing is actually taking actions and doing things so that your supply chain will withstand an attack. So not just, oh, here's this scenario and we failed, but actually going in and putting some countermeasures. Blockchain that hardens data. So what I mean by that is, a lot of these processes already exist. Tracking material movements and auditing and quality inspections and things like that. But this really makes it all so that it's blended together, and you can't just attack, a level 4 supplier. You'd have to attack the whole thing, and it's extremely difficult to do that. So the other thing is combining these two. These two technologies combined is kind of the idea here. If you want a digital twin, it's really no good unless you have good data. And the blockchain ensures that you do have good data. So the last thing we're going to talk about is how we can integrate these technologies to improve our company's market position, operational efficiency, and stakeholder trust. And we'll also touch a little bit on some of the key challenges in adopting the technology and some solutions. So integrating this technology is going to improve your operational efficiency. And by improving your operational efficiency, you're basically going to make more money and then that will improve your market position, right? Um, so the digital twin and blockchain will basically help you to reduce things like downtime, production losses, because you'll be able to test different scenarios, right? And how I spoke earlier about blockchain, allowing you to reduce paperwork with, things that needs to happen at every transaction. All those administration costs are also going to help, with operational efficiency. Um, the other thing is a stakeholder trust. So essentially, that's the idea of this technology, right? You want to be able, if you're the US government, you want to look at Lockheed Martin's products and say, are they safe, right? Because these products are used in the battlefield. So you want to make sure, no foreign government or terrorists are trying to attack you, putting things in place that'll make equipment fail during battle. So all these things really help increase the company's trustworthiness in the eyes of their stakeholders, especially the US government. So there's a handful of challenges to adopt this technology, the big one being cost. Some sources cited, small projects ranging from the 50,000 to $100,000 range, and the big enterprise-wide projects ranging to over $500,000. The other big thing is, the amount of energy that these systems consume with all these big data centers going up, they're just guzzling electricity. So um, the other thing is training and resistance from current employees. The people who maybe are closer to retirement or the ones who just have been there so much longer that they're not really willing to accept change. And also, if you have too many systems, it could be difficult to implement. You might need to really leverage your IT department on that. So as far as costs go, one thing you could do is a modular approach to implementing the technology. So maybe starting with one division at a time, or maybe one facility at a time, to help you reduce costs. And then, when you understand that one very well, you could scale it up. The other one I wanted to touch on was proper training, because although that might add to your costs, it could help you to get past the human side of it. People who are trying to resist the change. If you train them properly or approach it in a positive way, you may be able to avoid all that. So that's the end of my presentation. Just to summarize really quick, Lockheed Martin is a global company who is using blockchain and the digital twin already. They're using it to enhance their supply chain by keeping their information safe, by knowing where their materials are at all times, and by all that making them more trustworthy in their eyes of their customer. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you. There are my sources.